Imagine waking up in a world that feels heavier than the day before. The colors are dull, your thoughts loop endlessly, even the simplest task, getting out of bed, feels like lifting a mountain. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're carrying an invisible weight that very few understand. This speech is not here to inspire you with cliches. It is here to give you truth, to offer tools, and to extend a hand, because I've seen what happens when people stop believing life can get better. And I've also seen what happens when they choose, despite the pain, to take one step forward. When you're depressed, your world collapses inward. Everything becomes chaotic, internally and externally. The first thing you must do is restore order in the smallest place you can control: your room, your desk, your bathroom sink. These aren't trivial actions, they're symbolic. Cleaning your space is an act of reclaiming your agency in a world that feels like it's slipping through your fingers. You cannot overhaul your life in a day, but you can fold your laundry, you can throw out the garbage, you can make your bed. These tasks, however mundane, push back against the chaos. Every time you impose structure on disorder, you're telling yourself that you still matter. Suppressing your emotions may feel like survival, but it's actually silent self-destruction. Depression thrives in lies and silence. You need to find one person, a friend, a counselor, a mentor, and you need to tell the truth. Not a polished version, the raw, messy, vulnerable truth. Say, "I'm not okay." That confession, though painful, is a turning point. It reconnects you with reality and with others. You'll be surprised how often the people around you are silently suffering too. And when you speak, you not only liberate yourself, you give permission for others to heal as well. Depression kills time. It turns days into a blur. To fight that, you need to anchor your life with rhythm. Start with one thing, something small and meaningful. Maybe it's journaling for 5 minutes, walking around the block every morning, or reading one page of a book. The point is not how big it is, but how consistent it becomes. Human beings are not meant to live in disarray. Our nervous systems crave predictability, purpose, and routine. Don't underestimate the power of this. A single positive ritual done every day becomes a lifeline, a thread that pulls you forward even when everything else feels like it's falling apart. When depression sets in, life feels like it's happening to you. But healing begins when you start choosing again, and the key word is responsibility. Not blame, not guilt, but the deep, meaningful idea that your actions still matter. You are not powerless. You can't fix everything today, but you can make one choice that serves your future self. Choose to drink a glass of water. Choose to turn off the toxic video. Choose to stand up, even if you sit back down right after. Each choice you make in the right direction reclaims a piece of your life. Responsibility is not a burden. It is the pathway out of despair. If you're battling depression, you're not weak. You are wrestling with darkness and still breathing. That alone is courage, but you must know this: no one is coming to save you, but people are here to help you save yourself. You start small, you tell the truth, you build a routine, you take responsibility, slowly, painfully, but surely, and in doing so, you discover something remarkable, that even in suffering there is meaning. And meaning is stronger than despair. When someone is deep in depression, even the most basic aspects of life can become overwhelming. The external world begins to mirror the internal chaos: piles of laundry, scattered items on the floor, unwashed dishes, and dim, lifeless rooms. And while these things may seem trivial to the average person, for someone struggling with depression, they are powerful symbols of defeat. But that is exactly why reclaiming control over your environment is not just a matter of cleaning. It becomes a psychological act of defiance against despair. You start small because small is all you have, and small is enough. It might begin with something as ordinary as making your bed. That simple act signals a commitment to order. It is not about perfection. It is about reasserting the belief that you still have some power in this world, no matter how slight it may feel. When you fold your blanket and arrange your pillows, you are sending yourself a message: I am not giving up. and that message matters more than you realize. Because when you're depressed, the voice in your head is always whispering the opposite. It tells you, why bother? It says nothing will change. But the act of putting things in their place counters that voice, not with words, but with action. And it builds. When your room is in order, your mind feels slightly less foggy. When you can see the floor again, you're reminded that your actions still shape your reality. You open a window, let in light, and sweep the dust off your shelves. These aren't chores, they are rituals of self-respect, declarations that you haven't been completely beaten. Depression thrives in stagnation and mess because it makes you feel like there's no point in trying. But by bringing even a small sense of structure to your physical space, you begin to challenge that belief. Eventually, that order spills over. You're more likely to drink water when your kitchen isn't a disaster. You might eat something nutritious when the counter is clean. You might read a book when your bed is made. It isn't magic, it's momentum. Depression slows everything down, drags your life into a kind of emotional gravity. But you don't need to escape it all at once. You just need to make one room, one corner even, yours again. That's where the rebuilding begins. Because when your world is falling apart inside, restoring even a fragment of the outside gives you a foothold to rise again. Depression is an experience often wrapped in silence. Those who suffer from it tend to retreat inward, not because they want to be alone, but because they believe their pain is too much for the world to handle, or worse, that it doesn't matter. This isolation is one of the most dangerous elements of depression. The mind becomes a dark echo chamber where negative thoughts spiral unchecked and unchallenged. In that space, a person can begin to believe things that simply aren't true, that they are a burden, that no one cares, that nothing will ever improve. That's why telling the truth, honestly and without shame, is a vital step in healing. It's not just a release, it's a rebellion against the lies depression tells you. When you finally speak, it doesn't need to be eloquent or complete. It just needs to be real. Saying I'm not okay is not a weakness. It's one of the bravest things a person can do. The world may encourage us to put on a mask to stay strong, to pretend until we make it, but that kind of pretending only strengthens the grip of depression. What it doesn't teach us is that authentic expression is powerful medicine. When you speak about your pain, even haltingly, you turn a secret wound into something seen, and when something is seen, it can begin to be healed. The truth must be spoken to someone who listens without judgment. That could be a trusted friend, a therapist, a spiritual guide, or even a stranger in a support group. What matters is that the truth leaves the prison of your own mind. Once spoken aloud, those dark thoughts begin to lose their power. You might discover that others have been where you are. You might hear, I understand. And for the first time in a long time, feel less alone. There is immense strength in vulnerability. It's not about gaining pity. It's about reconnecting with humanity, one honest conversation at a time. Depression breeds in secrecy and silence, but truth cracks open the walls of isolation. It reminds you that your pain is real, but so is your capacity to be heard, understood, and supported. You don't have to carry it all on your own. Speaking up does not mean everything will immediately get better, but it means that you've taken a stand, a quiet, fierce stand, against the darkness that wants you to believe you're alone. One of the most disorienting aspects of depression is the way it distorts time. Days blur together, and the hours seem to stretch endlessly, yet feel like they've disappeared without purpose. You wake up, but there's no structure to guide your energy. You sleep, but it doesn't feel restful. It's as if life is happening in a gray, formless fog. This lack of rhythm feeds the hopelessness. That's why building even one small, meaningful routine becomes a critical turning point in the healing process. It isn't about transforming your life overnight. It's about anchoring yourself to something steady when everything else feels adrift. A routine is not merely a schedule, it is a signal to your brain and your body that life has a framework again. It says there is a plan, there is order, there is purpose, but when you're struggling, this can't be an overwhelming or complicated routine. It must be something manageable. Start with one habit, a simple, repeatable action you do at the same time each day. Perhaps you make a cup of tea every morning, or you take a 5-minute walk outside, or you write down a single thought in a notebook before bed. It doesn't need to be impressive. What matters is that it becomes yours. That it happens every day, no matter what. Consistency is more important than intensity. When you're depressed, motivation is unreliable, so your routine must rely on discipline, not inspiration. At first, it will feel pointless. You might even feel silly doing it, but after several days, then weeks, you'll begin to notice a change. That 5-minute action starts to become a pillar in your day. It gives structure to your time. It divides the chaos into segments. It helps you track the passing of time with purpose instead of confusion. This single routine can become a base for more. Over time, once the habit is integrated, you might find space for a second, then a third. The routines grow not because you force them, but because momentum begins to build. Depression tells you that nothing matters, but a routine tells you that your time still holds value. It helps remind you that even in your darkest moments, you are still capable of movement, still able to choose. And that tiny, consistent choice you make each day becomes a seed of discipline that can eventually grow into hope. When you're depressed, it can feel like life is something that just happens to you. Every day becomes a reaction, not a decision. You feel like a spectator in your own existence, watching events unfold without any sense of control. But there is a quiet truth that becomes a lifeline once you understand it. You still have the power to choose. And more importantly, those choices, no matter how small, carry profound significance. Reclaiming responsibility isn't about taking blame or feeling guilt. It's about recognizing that your actions, even in your lowest moments, can still shape your path forward. Depression tells you that nothing matters, so why try? That you're stuck, helpless, broken. But the path out begins with doing one thing deliberately, not for anyone else, but for yourself. That can be choosing to drink a glass of water instead of skipping it. Choosing to take a shower even when it feels pointless. Choosing to reply to a message rather than ignore it. These may seem like insignificant acts, but they are the beginnings of reclaiming your agency. Each of these small moments is a reminder, I'm still here, I can still decide. Responsibility in this context is not a burden, it's an invitation. It's not about having to fix everything all at once. It's about taking ownership of what is within your reach today. And when your world is consumed by depression, that reach may be limited, but it is never zero. Responsibility begins with accepting that while you did not choose your pain, you can choose your response. That may feel unfair, but it is also deeply empowering, because if your choices still matter, then your future is not entirely dictated by your current suffering. Over time, these acts of responsibility start to rebuild your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a passive victim of your circumstances and start to remember that you have the capacity to lead, to act, to rebuild. It's not about pretending you're okay. It's about standing up even if your legs are shaking. It's about saying, I will not let this darkness decide everything for me. Each time you do that, each time you choose to act with purpose, you carve out a piece of freedom from the grip of despair. Even in pain, you are not powerless. You are not lost beyond return. Every moment you choose to take responsibility, even in the smallest way, you are taking a step back toward yourself. You are proving to yourself that you are not merely surviving, you are fighting. And that fight, quiet and unseen, is the most important work you can ever do. Depression is a deeply personal and isolating experience, one that strips life of its clarity and meaning. But throughout this speech, the intention has never been to minimize that suffering or to offer hollow optimism. Rather, it has been to shine a light, small but steady, on the reality that even within the depths of darkness, there are steps you can take that matter. The foundation of recovery begins in the simplest of acts, restoring order in your immediate environment. Cleaning your room, making your bed, organizing your space. These are not chores, but defiant acts of self-respect. They stand in opposition to the internal chaos, and they whisper that even now, your actions still count. Reclaiming your physical space is the first battle won against despair. Equally important is the act of telling the truth. Depression thrives in silence, convincing you that no one would understand or care. But when you speak, when you allow yourself to be seen in your raw, unfiltered reality, you break the isolation, you reconnect with others, and perhaps most importantly, with yourself. Honesty opens the door to healing. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is strength wrapped in courage. By speaking your truth, you remind yourself that your voice has not been silenced, that your pain is not invisible, and that you are still a participant in this world, worthy of attention and care. From that place of honesty, the next step is to establish a sense of rhythm. A routine, no matter how small, is an anchor in a world that feels adrift. It doesn't matter if it's just brushing your teeth at the same time every morning, taking a 5-minute walk, or drinking a glass of water. What matters is consistency. Over time, this consistency forms the beginnings of order and stability. You begin to build momentum, and with that, a sense of competence. The structure of a routine counters the aimlessness of depression and reminds you that you are still capable of shaping your days, one deliberate action at a time. It's not the size of the habit that matters, it's the meaning behind it. And finally, you must come to understand the quiet power of responsibility, not as blame, but as liberation. When you begin to take ownership of your choices, no matter how small, you slowly reclaim control over your life. Depression convinces you that you are powerless, but each intentional act, each decision to move forward, is a refusal to be defined by your suffering. You may not be able to control your emotions, but you can choose your response. And in that choice lies freedom. In that responsibility lies transformation. You are not your depression. You are the one who has survived it, and within you is the strength to rise again. Not all at once, but step by step, choice by choice, day by day. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this speech. If you made it to the end, I want to acknowledge your strength, your courage, and your willingness to seek growth even in the midst of struggle. This message was created not just to inform, but to connect, to support, and to remind you that even in the darkest moments, you are not alone, and your life still holds purpose. If this message resonated with you, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who might need it. Your support helps spread awareness and healing to others who are silently fighting battles every day. Every view, every share, and every comment could be the light someone else needs. Keep coming back for more content that uplifts, encourages, and empowers. Your journey matters, and every step you take forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be kind to your mind, protect your peace, and never forget, even the smallest step forward is still a step forward. Thank you and goodbye.